Because I'm sure, I don't know if you see them or not, but there's all these articles about Joe Rogan is left, right, center, whatever. You and I have spoken enough now where you've made it clear that your actual positions on social issues, environment, they're pretty left, and you
They're
even
all
said
left. Yeah.
Bernie is really who aligns with me. Okay, Biden is not Bernie for sure, but it's closer, and so that's where I'm interested in whether there's really anything you can identify where you're like, I just don't agree with Biden on this.
Well, when you talk about Bernie and why I was interested in Bernie, what Bernie represented to me was someone who wanted change at a societal level, wanted to help people in a way that wasn't going to make anybody any money. It wasn't something where he was clearly doing this because of the special interest groups. It put him in a position that this would ultimately be more profitable. When he's talking about things like eliminating student loans, and making school free for everyone, when you say that, I go, first of all, that's not making anybody any money, right? That's one of those things you're only doing because you think it would be better for humans, better for our culture, better for our civilization. I'm all for that. Those are the things. Eliminating these catastrophic healthcare bills that people get when they get sick and they go bankrupt. That to me is crazy that we have this community. That's what it's supposed to be, right? The United States is supposed to be like almost like a giant team, and we would let others, just by simple misfortune, we would let their life completely fall apart because they got injured, and they come up with this bill that literally changes the whole course of their life. If you're a person who makes $50,000 a year and you're doing fine, and then all of a sudden a catastrophic injury comes along and you get hit with a medical bill that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're fucked. Like your life, you don't have enough time to make that up unless you do something significantly different in terms of earning more money. So you're stuck. You're in a bed.
That's it.
That's to me crazy, and that doesn't make any sense. Like, as a person who values community, as a person who values we can help, and it makes everybody feel good. If you can help someone who came upon some bad fortune, they feel better. They feel protected and loved. You feel better for being able to use your privilege or your fortune to help these people. That's what we need more of. That is what stood out for me about Bernie Sanders. Now, the argument against that is the pro-business argument, right? The pro-business argument is the stronger the business is, the better business does. There's a trickle-down effect, and the whole society will rise up because the economy is stronger. And there's going to be some ruthless capitalism going on, but ultimately it benefits everybody. And I don't think you have to have one or the other there. I mean, I don't think that these are mutually exclusive. That you can have capitalism, but you could also have compassion, and we could work together as a community. And try to take all these problems that we have that are really clear, right? Like these inner cities that never get any better. They never show any improvement. Unless they get gentrified, everything stays fucked, right? Why is that? That's not an unsurmountable problem. Like, if we can fly across the planet and try to fix countries that we've blown up in war, why can't we try to fix the inner cities that our kids go to school in? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, that people are forced to live in. That's why I was interested in Bernie Sanders. That's what he means to me.
The healthcare example is an interesting one because it really comes down to what is the main point of the healthcare apparatus, right? If the main point is to get people as healthy as possible so that they can live the longest, most fulfilling lives that they want or are able to, that gets you one set of policies. If the perspective is healthcare is just an industry like any other, where the participants just are there to make money, that's a totally different policy prescription and regulatory infrastructure. It's night and day.
Yeah, it really is. It really is night and day. And it's one of those things that I think people are probably going to be more interested in hearing about now, after this pandemic. They realize, hey, through no fault of your own, you could be broke. Through no fault of your own, you can lose your business. Through no fault of your own. So all these ideas that, I know people that are pretty right-wing that would give me a hard time about, call me a socialist and a commie because I'm really into Bernie Sanders. A lot of those very same people are now wanting to get that stimulus check. A lot of those very same people are now understanding why I supported Andrew Yang and his concept of universal basic income, because his concept is based on his understanding of technology and his knowledge of AI and the potential possibilities to just take millions of people out of the market, out of the workplace, like that. Almost like this, like a virus of technology that removes removes jobs instead of removes your health. And I think that more people probably would be better off if we shifted our ideas about what socialism means and what democratic socialism means. I think the word is so toxic. Maybe we should just call it community support. That we should think of these really key things like student loans. I think we both agree about this. It is insane to start your life at 21 years, 22 years old, just getting out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. That's insane. And if you go on to get a PhD, it keeps going. It keeps going. And you get to this point where you have this weight over you. Everywhere you go, there's this big ass weight and you're carrying it around. And you're carrying around this debt that even if you go bankrupt, you have to pay. How did that happen? How are businesses able to pollute the environment, make terrible mistakes, go under, go bankrupt, and they're absolved of their debt, but a kid who wanted to learn something goes to school and winds up, you're 22, you're not even a fully formed human yet, and you're in debt. You're fucked. You're starting out of the gate crazy behind the line.
Well, you're completely right, of course. About the toxic nature of the word socialism. Just to go back to that for a second, I think that hurt Bernie. In 2015, I was saying Bernie may well have been a socialist in the 1970s. He may still be one, but he's really running on social democracy, which is what they have in Northern Europe. It's a type of capitalism, and this is what I think Andrew Yang actually did well. I don't know if it was like people-centered capitalism that he called what he was doing, or what phrase he used. But I do think in my postmortems about what happened with Bernie, because it wasn't by a little bit that Bernie lost. I mean, even before he dropped out, he was down like 1.8 or 2 million votes to Joe Biden. Like this was really not close. I do think that the continued use of that word socialism was not helpful. And I know people will hear me say this and they'll say, David, either way they were going to call him a socialist. What difference does it make if he embraces the term or says it's not the right term or whatever? Sure, that applies to some people, but I fail to see what the advantage was to using a term that didn't really describe what his campaign was. He's talking about capitalism where you say, like you're pointing out, we can't let people drop too low. We need to ensure some basic level things happen that aren't people's fault. It's not just about you're going to do as well as you want to do. There are circumstances people are born into, injuries, pandemics, all this stuff.
Yes.
So I do think that whatever your opinion is about socialism, quote unquote, there was really no advantage to Bernie Sanders from using or at least to some degree allowing that term to continue being used.
Well, he wanted to redefine it. And when he came on to my show, he actually did try to define it and describe the difference between the concept of socialism, which a lot of people connect to communism, and what he calls democratic socialism. And what he was showing a more tamed down version of this concept that a lot of like real young lefties, like my friend Bridget was on the podcast the other day. Bridget Fetisi, she's a hilarious writer, very funny comedian, and she was talking about how she found some stuff that she wrote when she was in her early 20s, and she read it, and she's more center today, I would say, maybe left on many issues politically, socially rather, but she was like AOC. She said she's reading this stuff, and she was like a radical when she was young, and I think that happens to people. I'm sure Bernie was probably a full-on socialist at one point in his life. But what did that mean back then versus what does it mean now? And even the term socialist, when you look at the term conservative or the term socialist, you're talking about a spectrum. You're not talking about a 1 or a 0. You can't have no one has the same number factor of conservatism. There's a lot of people that are conservative that they're very liberal on a lot of social issues, but yet they still vote red. And I think there's a lot of people that consider themselves like a socialist. At what level? If you're pro fire department, I think you embrace some socialist values, right? If you're pro a lot of the services that we use that are a part of your tax dollars, like we're combining our money so that the world is better for all of us. It's not just a dog-eat-dog fight. We recognize value in community and society and a civilization where we all work together. We just don't want to work together too much. We don't want people leeching off of it. And I'm on that side as well. Because I know that although there are, and we're seeing these more than we've ever seen in our life, that multiple circumstances beyond your comprehension, totally out of your control, that fucks up your life. But yet we also see people who are lazy and who keep fucking up their life, and you keep enabling them and helping them. It doesn't help anybody either. Both those things are true. It doesn't, just because you agree with one thing that we need to help each other doesn't mean you deny the fact that there's a real problem psychologically to giving people free money and to giving people free room and board and taking away incentive for them to survive. There's something, for whatever reason, that a lot of us need, this sort of like inner drive, this knowledge that you're responsible for your own destiny, and you have to go out there and you have to put in the work. You have to get out of bed when the alarm goes off. You have to do the things you're supposed to do. And there's people that don't do that, and yet they still want to be rewarded. They still want money. They still want their check. They still want the thing they feel society or government owes them. That's not good either. See, both of those things are not good. It's not good to let people who are sick rot and live their life in a compromised position because they don't have enough money for the medical care. That's sick too. It's not a good person, it's not a good society, it's not a good model to have people starve. That's not good. If there's money and food and we can distribute it more evenly, especially to people that are unfortunate, but it's also not good to let people just camp out on the sidewalk where you can't walk through it. Los Angeles is filled with tents now, especially now because of all this craziness in the pandemic. It's gotten way worse. There's areas where you can't go anywhere. You literally can't walk under underpasses. There are these campgrounds. Like, that's not good either. You know, and now we're dealing with mental health problems, I'm sure, and a lot of other issues.
Without getting into that, I mean, there's a lot. So, okay, you mentioned the areas where even right-wingers tend to be okay with sort of like socializing certain services. So, fire department's an easy one. Who does the road? Those are all really easy. But I think that there's some more pernicious ones that the right is less eager to own. Like, for example, it's all about free market capitalism for profits, make a business, build up the business, etc. Even when that business is built on law enforcement that's socialized to protect your offices,